If you're a self-taught artist looking to get into oil painting and you have no idea what to buy and you have a limited budget that you need to make sure that the supplies that you buy are actually worth it, hi, I'm Noelle. I'm a self-taught artist who's been oil painting for about 2 years, and these are the supplies that I bought that I think were worth it and that I think that you should buy if you're trying to get into oil painting. First of all, starting with paint. These days, I have quite a bit of paint, but when I was just starting out, I was on a budget. And so I couldn't just be buying every single color under the sun. This is nothing new, but I started with a limited palette, and there's so much information about these online of what limited palette to choose depending on the type of subject that you want to paint. I started with titanium white, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, French ultramarine, and burnt umber, and that is it. Only 5 tubes of paint, and that gets you pretty far. If you have a little bit of extra money to spend, the next 3 colors that I would recommend getting after that, bright yellow, bright orange, and bright red, those just help you get a wider range of hue in your final mixed colors, and especially if you want some brighter tones, I do think those ones are pretty necessary. As always, the big question is, what do you do about brushes? And as you can see behind me now, I have about 1 million. But when I was starting out, let me tell you, I should have bought the cheap brushes. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are going to ruin some of your first brushes that you buy. So I'm telling you right now, just buy the cheap ones. All you really need is a flat, a bright, and a filbert. And maybe a detail brush if you like detail things. But those 3 in whatever size is appropriate for the canvas that you're doing, that will get you far. Onto painting mediums. When I was first starting out, I was so stressed about the toxicity of oil paint because everybody is making such a big deal out of it all the time. And the first space that I was painting in was my studio apartment, where my painting area was about 5 feet from my bed. And so I was fairly concerned about not fumigating myself in my sleep. And so from the beginning, I only used linseed oil, and I have not changed from that. People use all sorts of things to get the desired effects that they want, but I truly think all you need is linseed oil to get started, and I think it's way less intimidating to start solvent-free. Linseed oil is entirely non-toxic, which I find to be very reassuring, especially because it does kind of get everywhere, and then you just don't have to worry about it. Skip the solvents and just do linseed oil. It'll make your life way easier at the beginning. On a similar note, as far as just ease of use, is getting palette paper instead of an actual glass or wood or plexiglass palette. This is my palette paper. I go back and forth between using this and using a glass palette, but truly when you are just starting out, there's such a barrier with oils as far as cleaning up after you're done, and it can be so annoying to sit down and be like, oh, I have to, scrape my palette before I can start a new painting, and I have to perfectly clean all of my brushes. And so I find that palette paper can just be a really easy intro way to get into oil painting, where once you finish a painting, you just rip off one of these sheets and then have a fresh palette to start with, and it makes it really easy and accessible. And similarly to that, I highly recommend using canvas paper instead of stretched canvas. Again, I started painting in my studio apartment. I did not have the space to be having a whole bunch of canvases stacked up on my walls and on my shelves. And so having canvas paper that literally is just unstretched canvas, flat, that you can tape to a board is so helpful, because then once they dry and once they're all finished, you can just store these things flat in a folder if you want. And it makes it so easy to not accumulate a huge pile of art, especially when you're learning. Things just don't need to be that fancy. The most expensive painting I've ever sold that was 4 figures was painted on canvas paper, and she loved it. So that's all I'm saying. The final big things that I would recommend is having a tabletop easel. I literally just use this one that I've had since I was a child. I think the biggest size I did on this was a 15 by 18, which was not ideal, I'll be honest, but this is really all you need. And you can invest in a floor one later on if you decide that you're actually into oil painting, but no reason to get that at the beginning. And then I love using brown painter's tape, which I use to secure my canvas paper to cardboard or whatever flat surface that I have to paint on. I prefer the brown over the blue so that it doesn't affect my colors. I also recommend a dedicated trash can with a lid. You will have a lot of paper towels and things that are soaked in oil, and they get stinky. I started with just this little baby one that I got from Goodwill. Nothing crazy, but it has served the job until very recently, where I upgraded to a larger one. And then on that note, you also should have a roll of paper towels, but those are super cheap, so not a big deal. Some other quick DIY things that I did right at the beginning that I really liked was I filled this old Talenti ice cream container with a bunch of dry beans, and this allows me to stack my brushes upright so that they don't touch each other and they don't get in the way. I also recycle a ton of glass and plastic containers for cleaning my brushes and throwing linseed oil and all of that kind of thing, but that's what I know. I want to say that my first trip to the art store was probably around $100, $150 to get all of those supplies, so it's nothing too crazy. It certainly is an investment, but this is an art form that does take investment if you want to get into it. So those are some of my thoughts, but if you have any questions, let me know. This is certainly not a comprehensive list of everything you could ever use or want in oil painting, but it'll get you started, which is all you can ask. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk soon.